So today is the second drive with Tesla full self-driving, supervised full self-driving, 12.5.4. I'm leaving the clinic and I'm going to head to the Kissimmee Airport, update the GPS databases on the airplane. The weather's not great for flying today, so I doubt that's going to happen. But the Garmin navigation databases have to be updated every 28 days for the onboard GPSs. So I've updated the databases on the iPhone using Garmin Pilot, and also on my two iPads that I use when I'm flying. One I have mounted in the panel, an iPad mini, and one is just a regular iPad Pro, I guess, that I typically mount on a suction device to the window so I can have a display of charts and so forth. I'll go ahead and activate FSD again. The drive this morning was a little bit over an hour. It was going great until I finally got to the exit for Lake Nona at the end of the drive, and it drove right past the exit. Had to come back. I'll have to review the video to try to figure out why I did that. Of course, my luck, it would happen while I was on a phone call, so I didn't really react fast enough to save it from that missing the exit. That's the thing about the full self-driving. It'll amaze you, and it'll make some of the dumbest mistakes. So you really have to keep an eye on it still. So it still ignores the speed limit. Speed limit's 25. We're going 40. That is because the speed limit sign was yellow, and it was an on-ramp for the expressway here. As I've mentioned many times before, it'll read black text on a white sign for speed limit, but ignores the yellow ones and the orange ones, which includes construction zones and on-ramps and off-ramps for the highway. Seems like this will be easy enough to fix, but this has existed on every version for at least the last few years now. Hopefully this is not some kind of conscious choice of the programmers. It seems more like neglect to me. Presumably they have these sorts of ramps in California too, so you'd have to think they realize this is an issue. If you look, you'll see that the speed limit is adjusted down to 65, but the max speed for the FSD stayed at 79. I have it set for a 13% offset, but it did not adjust down when the speed limit changed, making the speed inappropriate. It took about a month to get this update in the software, and they added the actually smart summon, which I've not had time to test yet. But they've not really documented anything else that's changed over the last several versions. And looking at other people's YouTube videos seems to be a mixed bag. Some things better, some things worse as usual. I just get the sneaking suspicion they don't have as many people working on this software as we would like to assume, since many well-known obvious errors are repeatedly made with no apparent effort to correct the problems. So we're on Highway 417, which is the southern beltway around Orlando, heading westbound right now. We're just starting to get some rain showers at the extreme edge of the system affected by Hurricane Helene, which is currently down on the edge of Mexico, on the other side of the Gulf of Mexico. I'll be sure and test its response to the security barricades at the entrance to the neighborhood, where all the recent versions have failed to see these and has attempted to drive through them. The barricades have basically been invisible to the FSD. Resulting in a disengagement pretty much every time to avoid a collision with the barricade. And these barricades are important because they guard railroad crossings as well as the entrance to neighborhoods and apartment complexes in various parking lots at people's place of business. So it's got the speed limit max set at 79 miles an hour, while the actual speed limit is 65. I have the thing configured to be 12% above the speed limit. This is obviously more than 12% above, so who knows where it came up with the idea to drive this fast. I'm going to back this down, particularly since we're in a construction zone. We had some unexpected braking there as somebody was merging in to the lane, but they were not encroaching into our lane yet, so it caused somebody behind us to have to brake. So there it is, 13% above the limit. So it was driving 15 miles an hour above a limit when the speed was only 65, so that's certainly more than the 13% that is set. And you'll know that I have the automatic speed offset turned off, and yet it still changed the speed limit abnormally fast, ignoring the configuration screen setting. A little more unusual braking there down to 57 miles an hour, even though there's nobody very close in front. Nobody was encroaching on our lane. So the speed is doing whatever the heck it wants to without explanation at this point. It's a little windy. I can feel the car getting pushed around a little bit. So I'm wearing sunglasses, and I have the green dot saying it's tracking my eyes. This normally would not happen with sunglasses. So maybe that's a change with this version of the software. So we're coming up on our exit here at John Young Parkway. Ramp speed limit is 45 miles an hour. We're going 55. Coming through the toll plaza. We're slowing down only because this truck ahead of us slowed down some. And we're changing back into the correct lane to go southbound. Again, the speed limit is 45, getting ready to drop to 25. Got two signs for 25, but they're yellow signs, which again get ignored by FSD. They are slowing down some. We're down to 40. 31. So that's not too bad. Just 6 miles an hour over the limit on the ramp. 30. But it's still showing the limit at 45, even though the limit's really 25. So it probably pulled that speed from the map as opposed to the signs that were pretty clearly marked. So for this drive, so far everything's good except for these speed runaways and ignoring the speed limit signs on exit ramps and on ramps, which it's always done. The speed runaway is particularly concerning. It read the speed limit as 65 and decided to set the maximum speed at 79, even though the configuration screen was set for only a 13% offset, which would have been 74 miles an hour. Who knows where it came up with the 79 figure, but this was in a construction zone with a lot of traffic. There were also a couple of uncommanded and unexplained speed slowdowns into the mid-50s range for no apparent reason, one of which caused somebody behind me to have to brake to avoid running into the back of the car. So at this point, there's plenty to keep an eye on if you're using the FSD. You still can't really relax with it. As I said before, it'll do some things amazingly well, and it'll do unexplained stupidity. Another thing not demonstrated today in previous versions is that it would suddenly set the speed limit down to 40 while driving on the Florida Turnpike or on Interstate 75 with no explanation, just driving down the highway, and it would suddenly set the speed limit down to 40. And this is with no signs anywhere in sight, so it wasn't misreading a minimum speed sign or any other speed limit sign. Just out of the blue, it would go to 40, even with no traffic around. It could always be some kind of error in the GPS map, perhaps. But that's just downright odd. You have to very quickly roll the speed back up if there happens to be traffic around. A few times I've had to disengage because it just repeatedly set the speed down to 40. It was just less nuisance to drive manually than it was to let the FSD continue like that. I don't know if that's still going to be an issue in this version or not. Again, this is version 12.5.4. I keep seeing people posting videos claiming to go hundreds of miles without interventions. And sorry, I'm a little skeptical, because I almost always get an intervention or a near intervention in less than 20 miles of driving. This morning's drive I didn't intervene, but it clearly missed the exit ramp, adding another 5 minutes to my trip, as I had to take the next exit and come back. And we were in the correct lane to take the ramp, it just didn't take it. It wasn't that we were being blocked, because I have missed ramps before when other drivers intentionally blocked me from being able to get onto the ramp, but that wasn't the case today. I'll have to review the video, but maybe it was confused about construction in the area, or some disagreement between real world and what the map showed on the GPS. But you're welcome to check that video out once I get it edited and published. That video will actually appear online before this one does, later today, hopefully. We're recording today on the Akaso Brave 7 action camera, 4K video, 30 frames per second. As I mentioned earlier, these are inexpensive action cameras with pretty good video quality. And they include a standard tripod mount, screw mount on the bottom of the camera, which is pretty handy. So you're not stuck with using only GoPro accessories. Only about 1.5 miles from the Kissimmee Airport now, which is our destination for this drive. So this is a security gate to get into the airport property, and you have to use card access. So I'll have to disengage to get the car close enough to the card reader. So I'll go ahead and disengage here. This gate was broken. Maybe it still is. So that's not very convenient. Still broken? Still broke?
Oh, yeah.
Gosh, it's been like a couple months. All right. So they got a chain you have to lock with a padlock. when you come and go through the gate, so that's kind of a nuisance. But that's it for today's video.